Hello, and welcome to the Mental Health Gaming Podcast. Once again, I'm Stu, and this week, he's been pondering on the fact that as Brad's not here, he might be losing his mind and talking to himself. How are you doing, Stu? Well, I'm alright, Stu, although I think I might be losing my mind. Yeah, so gags aside, unfortunately Brad's too ill to do the podcast this week. As he's mentioned before and you'll have seen on the socials, unfortunately he's got COVID along with the rest of his family, so he's not doing too great with that. He's not in any danger, I don't believe, but obviously he's pretty sick and he can't record, so yeah, you're stuck with me. Yeah, I know, sorry, poor you. That's very bad. I would say switch off now, but I've got too much of an ego, so stay on, listen to me. I'm ace. So, Stu, what have you been playing this week? Well, Stu, quite a few things, actually, but a few notables. And we'll go through them in the standard format. To begin with, I've been playing Tetris Effect Connected. And not just because Brad continually goes on about it. Although, you know, that's a factor. It's more present in my general day-to-day working world than it would have been, if not for Brad's insistence that a copy has to be bought every time it's released. But you know, it's to a good end. The man's got his head in the right space. It's an absolute classic, and I got it on the Switch because I have it already on loads of other formats, and it's just one of those that you do, like I say, you keep buying because it deserves the recognition and it deserves the popularity, and also, you know, you want to keep playing it, and it's best played if you're just playing the standard game. It's best played on a handheld, in my opinion. So yeah, got it on my Switch, sadly not on OLED. But it is a Switch Lite, which has, for me, the better joypad out of that and the one with the Joy-Cons. And of course the Joy-Cons don't fail. But the trade-off is, screen's probably not as good and doesn't have any rumble. Anyway, my big worry about Connected on the Switch was going to be, is it running it? You know, an acceptable frame rate. Again, something Brad's not bothered by, but particularly in something that required such precision, it's quite important. Just a tad, you know, just a tad. And yeah, it does, which is a really, really good thing. So it plays really smoothly and accurately. There's no issue with seeing the detail on the screen. You can still zoom in and out if you want to using the left analog stick. Or is it the right? One of them anyway. And you've got tons and tons of accessibility options. Brad spoke about them in the previous podcasts. Have a listen to those to hear what they are in full. But yeah, no, it's great. It just, you know, it fits it onto the machine really, really, really well. And I think there might be a few effects missing. I can't be entirely sure, but certainly nothing that really detracts from it. And most importantly, the audio is there. It's as good as it is on any of the other formats. And, you know, that's the thing that edges Connected over the line, really, when it comes to all the other versions, is that, you know, Tetsuya Mitsugushi thing of that synesthesia, you know, like rares and like lumens. For me, I think it matches the music and the atmosphere and the chill out feel, apart from when it gets really fast, really, really well. I don't think it does it as well as Lumens, or Luminaires, or however you want to pronounce it. I don't think it quite matches that. And only in that one factor. It's a better game than Lumens. I think Lumens is an absolute copper-bottomed all-time classic, particularly on PSP or another handheld. I think it's just form and function totally perfectly matching, and the music right there with that style of gameplay, yeah, it just blends like Res does into an absolutely perfect package. But it's a better game than Res as well. You know, come at me with all these opinions, obviously, but, you know, Res is a decent game, but the shooting is a vehicle for the synesthesia element, whereas with Lumens, it's entirely, you know, the two are just fused. It's completely fused together, in my opinion. And yeah, it just, for me, it's just phenomenal. Anyway, I don't know how many hours we've covered over different podcasts on Tetris now. Must be at least 6. But yeah, there you go, there's some extra. And yeah, it's great. If you haven't got it on any format, get hold of it. It's free on Game Pass. Well, not free, because you pay for Game Pass. But it's on it. It's on Game Pass. And it's, I think, fairly cheap, reasonably cheap on other formats. So go ahead and get it. Dragging myself away from UN Squadron has been extremely hard. Like, really hard. So, obviously I remembered how good it was. I remembered from 25 years ago? No, nearly 30? 30 years ago, Jesus. I remembered from 30 years ago how into it I got. And I think, now, you see, it's always hard to remember. Well, it's 30 years, man. But I'm pretty sure that I kind of caned it and was never good enough to get right to the end and even get to the end, not complete it with loads of credits. And I've been playing it now. I got a ASCII Super joystick. Hang on, let me know what it's called. Super ASCII stick, right? For the SNES. Super Famicom in my case, it's a Japanese unit. I got that because I saw it fairly cheap in Japan, managed to get hold of it, and unlike loads of joysticks from that particular era, it's actually micro-switched. I've got a few, and they're the plunger style with the graphite contacts that you have in pads, and obviously for joysticks that's not a great thing. They're not robust enough, they're not clicky and connected enough or responsive enough or anything like that. They're pretty rubbish, to be honest. Works okay in a pad because there's a shorter travel distance, but okay, yeah, that's enough about the mechanics and physical properties of joysticks and control pads. But this stick is great, and I'm able to get to, I nearly completed it. I was able to one credit it all the way to the end and then died on the boss several times, the final boss. And it's kind of like you do a multiple passes of this big ship. It's a little bit similar to R-Type with the big ship, It's not quite as big as that, but it's probably as tough, if not tougher. And the difficult part is that it's got like a beating heart, just like, they often have in these games, lodged in the centre of the ship, and getting into that means that you're both physically in a very tight and narrow space and you're getting shot at. And there's tons of other things, moving parts to collide. So long story short, I got right to the end on a single credit and then I died, lost all my lives on the boss. So that's not going to stop me. And as I say, I can't stop going back to it. So I've got like the mirror opposite problem of people with ROMs that they complain about, which is that because they've got them, the value of the games decrease, and so they play them for 5 minutes and then don't bother. I've got the opposite problem. I've been playing this one exclusively and haven't touched a single other game other than Super Mario World, which was the first one I played, and I completed that as well, so I've been quite, I've been quite focused. Anyway, wonderful game. I highly suggest that you pick it up in a pack. I think you could probably get it in the Capcom arcade pack. I'm not sure if you can get the SNES version or it's just the arcade one. I'm not even entirely sure if you can get that. So yeah, pick it up, fair means or foul, however you like. It's not going to hurt Capcom, and it will benefit them if it's somewhere available for purchase. So yeah, go for it, thumbs up. Final game to talk about this week is a new one. It crawled from the past and out the depths, from the crypt into the blinking bright light of the modern world, and was playing Mighty Goose, which is a throwback, so that's quite ironic. And this is on Game Pass as well. I've been playing it on PC, but it'll no doubt be available on Xbox as well. And it's a run and gun, very much in the style of, it's kind of a mix of a few things, but if you're talking about it being a recipe, it's kind of like 2 massive dollops of Metal Slug and then a dollop of Mega Man, and then a mix of spice that's other run and gun games like Gunstar Heroes and the like. rapid reload, God knows heaven, those kinds of things. And it's really, really good. It's complete mayhem. It doesn't do much that's completely new, but there are a couple of things in there. There are a couple of things that are modern quality of life improvements, which is great, like saving, being able to go back previous levels, being able to upgrade your weapons and abilities, which I won't go into too much because they're great to discover. But it does bring about some new stuff. So, like firing down when you're in the air, very similar to Metal Slug, actually keeps you in the air. So you can, enemies that have like a lot of armor and protection from the front, you can hover above and shoot at. Makes it sound like a win button, but it isn't, because there's tons of other enemies on screen all at once. There's loads of huge explosions. At times it deliberately turns into a complete screen salad of auto destruction where you can't really see anything. But at the end of those, it kind of, during them it doesn't fire there aren't too many projectiles being fired at you, and also at the end of them they tend to have things that drop health. It's very much a kind of like reward for it being difficult to that point. And it's difficult, it's not Metal Slug difficult, or even Gunstar Heroes difficult. It's reasonable. It's a averagely difficult game. It requires some skill and paying attention and a bit of learning some of the boss patterns, but it's not crazy. It's very accessible, and there's this emphasis on fun. Very silly, lots of cartoonish characters. The titular goose will randomly honk when he's in the middle of a fight, which always cracks me up. It's just crazy. It's got some great cartoony cutscenes that are wacky and kind of in a very silly kind of Nickelodeon kind of style, and just intentionally supposed to be ludicrous and make you laugh. And you got companions that give you assistance, which again I won't talk about too much, and some excellent weapons. And there's a couple of things it really lifts direct from Metal Slug as a homage kind of thing, including the riding the vehicles and the way the weapons work and the types of weapons to a large degree, and the announcer saying what weapon it is in the exact same style and tone as the original Metal Slug one. Might even be the same guy. But it does have enough in it to be its own thing, and the level layouts and some particularly nice little kind of things to do with traversal and transport and particularly gravity are very, very clever. So I would say, even if you haven't got Game Pass, if you like run and guns, I would pick it up, because it's a very, very good game, and it might creep into my Games of the Year list. I'm about 40% in or so. I've done the first 4 levels, so probably a little less than that, maybe about 30%. And it's just, at the moment, really good fun, and it's ramping up, and each level is bringing something new to the party, which is really surprising, to a pleasantly surprising situation. So very good, maybe one of the Games of the Year for me, and check it out. Now obviously I'm just going to keep this brief today because it's just me on my own, and as much as I like the sound of my own voice, I'm not going to talk for too long. I will mention about COVID a little bit, just because I know we don't cane talking about it, because we did when it first started, obviously, talking about it in the wider world. It's at a stage now where I'd be surprised if there are very many people who haven't had somebody in their immediate circle, or just one from their immediate circle removed, who hasn't had it now. I know loads of people now, people in my family, not my immediate family, but I have a very small immediate family, just me, my mum and my sister. They haven't had it yet. But people in my wider family, loads of them have had it. Quite a few of my friends have had it. Brad has it. So it's there, and I just don't understand at the moment whether people understand this, whether they understand it and they're frightened and therefore it appears like they don't care, or whether we're just on the tipping point where it's going to go back to an understanding of the level of severity and, in a reversal, people pushing back at the government to go back into things like lockdown or some sort of slightly more controlled situation, i.e., putting masks on and stuff in shops, which at the moment is down to about, I don't know. Well, for example, yesterday I went into the shop. I always wear a mask. I probably always will from now on in most busy shops, but I'm uncommon in that. But I think I saw one other person out of about 12 who had a mask on, and it's kind of like we're very much in the minority, if only about somewhere between 5 and 15% are wearing masks. It's pretty much unimportant. It won't make any real difference because obviously they're not medical masks. They don't have a huge impact, and partly it's just psychological reassurance. I'm not blind to the fact, but also it on the positive side, it's a note to the people around you that you're taking care, that you're paying attention. And it had a feeling that when more people were wearing them, it showed that they had to pay attention, that there was still an issue, that be careful about the number of things you're touching, about where you sneeze or cough, how close you stand to people, about pushing past them, about casually shaking the hand or giving a hug to an acquaintance. When your mask's in place, those things go through your mind. So it's a very good way of keeping that kind of perception and just keeping it in check. And of course that's what people rail against, because they see it as a system of control, or some people do, that if you are mandated to have to wear a mask, then that's the government telling you that your control is gone. Unfortunately, in this case, control has gone, or at least it did. I'm not sure if it's come back because of the Delta variant. That control was lost, and it's not because it's a societal thing or it's a political thing. It's just a purely biological thing. And human beings, aside from the vaccine, can't determine how quickly it spreads, how many people get it, how bad it is when you do have it, and all of these other factors. We just balance them as best we can. But, there's not much room for individualism when you're in the midst of a pandemic. And if individualism comes to the fore, then it will be a lot slower controlling the spread. And I'm not honestly not being political here at all. I think this is more of a societal level thing, and how individuals react, and obviously the campaigning by the government and the messaging and the laws around it are important, but we all have a sense of individual responsibility, or at least we should, I think most people do. And it's very important that even if you don't think that you're at risk, or you don't fully buy into the idea that the Delta variant is a big problem, then things like wearing a mask and giving people space and distance is part of being a good member of society. And I think there's kind of a right wing people don't like that. Middle of the road centrists don't really either. There's a kind of liberal way of thinking that is, yes, well, you need all the facts, you can't act without them, and therefore people have the right to make their own decisions. And it's like, well, that works to a degree, but we still need to fit within a framework because we're living in a society, and our actions as individuals impact others. We don't all live in our individual caves, as much as many people, and to a degree even myself, would like to be isolated, just naturally, just be holed up somewhere amazing with the person or people that you love. that's not the society in which we live and probably never will be. And so you do have to take individual responsibility, and sometimes that means being mandated by the powers in that society. And it's not a right-wing viewpoint inherently to hold that, and it's not a left-wing viewpoint inherently to hold that. It's just, it's outside of party politics, and it's about basic survival. Now, obviously, this is number 253 in the ongoing Stu lecture series. I do apologise for sounding like I've got a lecturing tone on this one, but I just do feel that we still have so many numbers, and the numbers increasing, and the number of deaths is still high, and the number of people catching, and the lack of knowledge about long COVID is scary, and the idea of further mutation towards a more deadly variant is also frightening, and we can't predict what will happen. It might mutate into a much more benign variant, very well might, and I'm fingers crossed for it, but we just work with what we've got, and what we've got is an okay level of understanding as a species about it, but not amazing enough to have a treatment, but for it not to be perfect, and for it, there's still a lot of work to be done. So yeah, I would just say I think that everyone needs to be cautious, and I'm hoping that the level of understanding and integration increases. I don't want people to blindly go into stuff or just listen to what I'm saying or just listen to what the other points of view are saying. It's kind of gather as much information as you can, but at the end of the day, just taking care in this time has very little impact on us as individuals. So take that care, take the time to remember your mask and to give people space and time, and be patient and kind, and just try and help that flow in outdoor society now that it's all changed and all a little bit weird and still hasn't settled. But yeah, no more lecturing, I promise, for today. Anyway, that's it for this podcast. I'm sure you'll join me in hoping Brad feels better very, very soon. Obviously, it's a horrible thing to have to put up with. It would be anyway, but on top of the fact that all of his family are ill as well, and the fact that he's had to cope with all of his eyesight issues, which he's done, with almost no complaint. I mean, even when he complains, it's normally in a jokey way, and he's being so pragmatic about it. It's fantastic. Not that he needs to be, or that he should be, but he is doing really well with that. So this is a particularly nasty thing to have happened. So let's hope that he's feeling better very, very soon, and we all send our love. And on that note, I will leave you. So until next time, hopefully with the return of Brad, stay safe and stay sane.